Hello, welcome to Chapter 3, Homework Questions 107 to 112. Question 107, solve each equation. So on part A, we're going to solve for x. We're going to go ahead and distribute the 3. So that gives us 3x minus 6 is equal to negative 6. Remember the 3 gets distributed to both terms there. We're going to go ahead and add the 6 to both sides, create those zeros. And that will give us 3x is equal to 0. Then we divide by 3, and x is equal to 0. On question B, we got to use the distributive property on this one again. This would be 2x plus 2. We also have a plus 3 still. And then on the right side, we're also going to distribute the 3. So that'll be 3x minus 3. We can combine our like terms on the left side. And then we will subtract the 2x. Once again, creating that 0 right here, and then that'll be 5 is equal to x minus 3. Then we'll add 3 to both sides, once again creating that 0 on this side, and x is equal to 8. Question C. Question C, we have a we're going to be using the generic rectangle on this one, or you can use the distributive property. So we'll go ahead and set up the generic rectangle. We have an x plus 2 and an x plus 3, so that's x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. That's equal to, we're going to do another generic rectangle. We have an x plus 1 and an x plus 5. So that's x squared plus 1x plus 5x plus 5. So I'm going to go ahead and write that below. We got x squared on this one plus 5x plus 6. On the right hand side we have x squared plus 6x plus 5. So since there's an x squared on each side, we'll go ahead and subtract, and that's going to create a 0 on both sides. It cancels both of them out with that x squared minus x squared, which would be 0. That leaves us with 5x plus 6 is equal to 6x plus 5. So we'll subtract 5x. Once again creating a 0, and then we have 6 is equal to x plus 5. Subtract the 5, and we have x is equal to 1. And then on the last one, there's a little space right here, we have the absolute value of x minus 5 is equal to 8. So remember, what we're thinking about is the distance has to be 8. So, you know, what two distances do we have that are 8? We could do positive 8, or we could do a negative 8. So no matter what, whatever's underneath here could equal 8 or negative 8, and that's the way we'll set it up. So we have one equation as x minus 5 is equal to negative 8, and then a second equation where x minus 5 could equal a positive 8. So when we add 5, we'll get negative 3, and when we add 5 on this one, we'll get 13. So we get two solutions. X is equal to negative 3 and 13. Question 108. Find the equation of the line based on the table. So to find the equation of the line, we want to do the slope, which represents the change of y, delta y, over the change of x, or delta x. You can do this by using the table. So if you just want to pick the first 2 points, that's going to go down by 5. And then the y on this one is going to go down by 15. So the change of y would be negative 15 over the change of x is negative 5. And that reduces to 3. The other way you could have done it is you could have picked 2 out of the 4 points. I'll do positive numbers, 3, 4, and 5, 10. And then you could have done the formula where you're actually taking the change of y over the change of x. This would be 6 over 2, and it's still equal to 3. So a couple of different opportunities in terms of how to look at that. We also need the y-intercept. So if we use the slope and work backwards, you might be able to do it that way. The other way that we can do it is we can use our equation y equals mx plus b, plug in the information that we know. I'm going to use the point 34 with my slope of 3. And so y is 4, my slope is 3, my x value is also 3, and my y-intercept I don't know. That's what we're solving for. And then when we subtract 9, we get b equals negative 5. So the equation would be y equals m, which is 3, x, and then minus 5. Question 109, find the equation of the line with a slope of 1/5 passing through the point 10, 9. So really similar to what we just did, we're going to use the equation y equals mx plus b. We're going to plug in what we know. We know 9 is equal to y, the m is 1/5, and the x is 10. And then we're just going to solve for the y-intercept because we have the slope. We just need the y-intercept. So 1/5 of 10 is 2. Subtract the 2, and b is equal to 7. So our equation would be y equals your slope, which is 1/5, and then x plus the y-intercept, which is 7. Question 110. This point is a checkpoint for operations with rational numbers. It will be referred to as checkpoint 3. Compute each of the following problems with fractions. I'm going to go ahead and just write the answers down for these. Once again, we're looking at changing things into improper fractions, common denominator. So for example, on A, we would want to find a common denominator. But once again, a lot of this stuff you can really just plug in your calculator to get the answer. So the first one is negative 19 over 24. B is going to be 4 and 5/6. That's as a mixed number. So if you want to write it as an improper fraction, that would also be equal to 29 over 6. Part C is 7 over 5. Or if you wanted to do it as a mixed number, that would be 1 and 2/5. D is equal to negative 8/3. Once again, as a mixed number, that would be negative 2 and 2/3. E, with addition, we have negative 3 and 7/12. And F is another division of mixed numbers. Change them to improper. As a mixed number, the answer would be 2 and 2/7. And if you had it as an improper fraction, that would be 16 over 7. So if you didn't get any of these right and you can't figure out what you did wrong, obviously ask your teacher and they'll kind of go through and explain how that works. Question 111. Copy and complete these generic rectangles on your paper, then write the area of each rectangle as a product of the length and the width and the sum of the parts. So that's important. So on part A, 6 times 13x is 78x. And then 21 times 6, negative 21 times 6 is negative 126. So to write this as a product, that would be 6 times 13x minus 21. So you're doing length times width is equal to the sum of its parts, which is 78x plus, or in this case, minus 126. So that's kind of what we're looking for in terms of your final answer as you're also filling in the boxes. So in the next one we have x squared. This box would be negative 5x. X times 3, because this is also a 3 here, that would be 3x. And this is also a negative 5, so that box would be negative 15. So our side lengths, you have x plus 3 times, and then you have this one up here, x minus 5. And if you had them in the other order, that's fine. If you had x minus 5 times x plus 3, that's okay. Multiplication is commutative, which means you can move it around. Doesn't matter the order that you multiply them. And then the sum of the parts would be x squared minus 2x minus 15. So I did combine my negative 5x plus my 3x to get negative 2x minus 15 for that one. On part C, we have the sum of its parts. Now we just have to figure out what those lengths are. So, what could this side length be when you're dealing with 16, 24, and 4? And all of those have a common factor of 4. So if you know that, 16 divided by 4 is 4, so that's 4x squared. Negative 24 divided by 4 is negative 6, but you do need the x because you have that x term. And then 4 divided by 4 is 1. So it looks like we have 4 times 4x squared minus 6x plus 1. And that would be equal to the sum of the parts, which is 16x squared minus 24x plus 4. And remember, we know how to multiply these two together by just using the distributive property. So is it true that 4 times that gives us the 16x squared minus 24x plus 4? And that is correct. D, once again similar to B, we have 3x squared minus 2x. This will be a 12x and a negative 8. And if you need to put the other lengths on these, like this would be a 3x, this is a negative 2, positive 4, and x. It's just on the opposite side of the square of the rectangle. That's fine. It looks like we have an area or product, 3x minus 2 times the other side length, which is x plus 4, is equal to the area where it's the sum of the parts, and that's 3x squared. 12x minus 2x is 10x, so that's plus 10x, and then minus 8. So once again, 3x minus 2, that quantity times the quantity x plus 4 is equal to 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. Question 112. Simplify using only positive exponents. So make sure we're using only positive. So we could expand this out to help us see what is going on here. This would be 3x times x times y times 5 times x, and then it's all multiplication, so 3 times 5 is 15. X times x would be x to the third power, and then there's only one y, so it would be y. On part B, to help us out in this one, in terms of not expanding, what we learned is that we can add, like on this one, 2 plus 1 is 3, so if we keep that same idea, if I take 2 plus negative 2, then that gives me x to the 0. And then for the y's, we have 3 plus negative 2 would be y to the first. But we don't want any 0. We only want to have positive exponents. So x to the 0 is 1. So that would be 1 times y, or just y. On C, with division, we can subtract the exponents. This would be 3 minus negative 2. And that would be plus 2, so that's x to the 5th power. And once again, there are different ways to look at these problems. So make sure that you're aware that this is not the only way how to simplify these. And then on the next one, the whole thing is being multiplied by itself 3 times. And so I'm going to expand that one out. So we can see it's 2 times 2 times 2. That's 8, not 6, because 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And then you can add all the negative 1s to get negative 3. And then we can simplify negative exponents. This would be 8 divided by x to the positive 3.